So, hey, what's up, peoples? This is Free Soldier. Getting back to you. It's pretty close to Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. We also had a little incident at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. I don't know if you guys have seen the videos, but it's a little alarming to see a group of mostly high school age kids donning apparel which promotes xenophobia, racism, neo-fascism. Yeah. So those kids, I don't know if they understand the weight that's on their heads when they put those kind of hats on their heads. But they felt a little bit of it when they had the bounce back from, I guess there was a group of African Americans that really were not happy to see somebody blocking the stairs of the Lincoln Memorial wearing these hats and shirts. And also, they were rowdy and kind of chanting and stuff. And so it highlights the really divisive nature that we are in, the climate of just complete misunderstanding. I think I would place it as there's xenophobia, right? Like to be afraid of people that are different. There's the racism. There, you can just put a checklist of all the craziness that's going down right now with the southern border, and the fact that these corporate powers are using that as an excuse, right? So let's just sit back for a moment and think about making America great. When was it great? What made it great? You know, I can look at the principle behind the United States of America. I can look at the documents and see the path to greatness. And then I compare that to the history of the United States. And as this man, Nathan Phillips, it makes abundantly clear with his drum and his song, history has not been as kind and as optimistic as those documents. So there's been slaughtering, there's been genocide, there's been slavery. It really hasn't been that great. There's been segregation, there's been discrimination, there's been a whole slew of humanity learning how to be human and humane. So we're on our way to greatness, but as far as making it great again, those founding principles are still in works. So we're making it great, right? Making great again, we're making it great. So those hats on those kids' heads, I don't know if they have like life experience to really understand what that means and the symbology that it represents to people of color and people who have been oppressed by the government, people who have been ravaged and raped and scalped by the government. You look at the $20 bill and the history behind that president and the leader of the government, and we look at our current president and what he is doing at the southern border and what he is trying to do at the southern border with Mexico. And the only reason why I have a smirk on my face is because I'm trying not to cry. It's really despicable to believe that these kids really have an understanding of history, and they choose to make that their political path. I think a lot of things have been left out for them. You look at the school system and its celebration of Christopher Columbus, and that's just one instance. The truth of Christopher Columbus, and we'll march on Washington, right? Eventually, to change that as a national holiday, but currently, people celebrate that motherfucker, that mother raper, that child rapist, that sociopath, that psychopath. Who knows exactly like what category he would fall in, like psychologically. But he's celebrated, and there's a fucking national holiday for the guy, right? So we're gonna look at the indigenous people through the lens of that, and how Christopher Columbus is celebrated. How? Like in reality, it's all like whitewashed, and it's a real fucking term right there. Like, the blood has been cleaned from his hands. So that has to change. That's one of the major things. So those kids are wearing these hats. They probably never learned about Christopher Columbus's real actions, the truth behind Christopher Columbus. So was that America as being great? No. That shit ain't great. That is horrific. And these kids, they don't understand. They really don't understand the nature of dictatorship. They don't understand the power of the mob. So here they are on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, which is very symbolic, right? And they're chanting these chants, wearing these fucking hats, wearing these shirts that are symbols of oppression and tyranny. And people are upset. So they're confronting it. And this man, Nathan Phillips, tries to interject himself, along with several other people, interjects himself into the confrontation to try to bring peace with his drumming and his music, right? And so that's where these cameras start turning on, the cell phones turn on, and they see something interesting. Here is a Native American elder who happens to be there to march for his people and his ancestors, to try to bring awareness to the lack of justice that is being given or has been given to the indigenous people of this land. And here he is, interjecting himself, trying to make peace. And the spotlight is put on him. And the spotlight is suddenly put on this kid. Because behind this kid, there's all these kids chanting, and they're hooting and hollering. And there's all this fucking weird energy, right? And that's what it takes. It takes this real weird mob mentality energy to turn from, oh, this is fun and this is funny, to a lynch. a lynch mob. And we've been through that in this country, and that shit wasn't great. So we don't want to make that shit great again. We don't need lynch mobs. But that was what this mob mentality kind of thing, I'm sure it was going through Nathan Phillips's mind. I'm sure, as he's surrounded by these kids, and you can see in part of the video they converge around him, and that is right where that kid, unfortunately for him, he stood right in front of this Native American elder playing the drum. So he put himself at the forefront of a movement that I don't think he really fully understands. He's not really ready to put himself out there for it, because it really has deep underlying messages of oppression. And you know, you can look in his face, there's a lot of uncertainty there. And when the crowd behind him kind of scatters away, you can see him look back, and he's not really sure he should be doing what he's doing, but he almost feels like he has no choice. And I think that is one of those underlying situations where we get stuck. As humans, we get stuck. We don't have room to make mistakes. We don't have room to say, oh, I fucked up. And so this kid, he's just a kid. He made a mistake. By putting on that fucking hat, he made a mistake. By being drawn in by this weird fucking mob mentality, he made a mistake. But people around him made mistakes by not teaching him the full stories, you know? And so here is this old, elderly Native American man trying to teach him a story through his song, through his drumming. And we, as a people, get to witness it through the power of the internet. And everybody wants to point fingers, and everybody wants to say who was wrong and who was right. But it really is a learnable, teachable moment, because what it shows is how fucked up our current climate is. How suddenly we are so quick to fight and draw an enemy where there's a kid, right? Just a kid. You look in fucking Chicago, that cop just got off. Yeah, he's got off. 6 years in prison is his fucking maximum sentence. He got off for killing a kid. But you look at these kids with their Make America Great Again hats. Trayvon Martin, what if he was wearing a Make America Great Again hat? What would that mean for Trayvon Martin, right? And we got a list of kids like Trayvon Martin. A whole list. And it's throughout fucking history. And it's happening down south on the border of Mexico. There's kids dying because of policies that are fucked. They are fucked up. That shit ain't great. That's not making anything great. And it's not again, and I would hope to say never again, but it's fucking happening. And who is supporting that shit? Kids wearing hats? It's not just these kids. These kids are not the fucking problem. That kid that stood in front of this Native American elder is not the problem. The reason why he wants to wear that hat is the problem. There's a root to that problem. Xenophobia, to be afraid of people that are different, is the problem. Why am I afraid of that person? There's thousands of refugees down there at the south of the border trying to get here because of the Statue of Liberty. Just like there were refugees 100 years ago 150 years ago trying to get to the border because of the Statue of Liberty. So if we're not going to welcome those refugees that are fleeing the drug war, that is pretty much the fucking problem of the United States policies. If we're not going to welcome them, bring the Statue of Liberty down. It's not there anymore. What's the point of it? Put up a monument to Donald Trump. Make him the statue of fascism, the statue of isolationism. Build his wall around himself, called a fucking prison. Build a prison for Donald Trump. Make it a small wall. It can be 8 by 8. We can build, you can make it 3 stories high. Because this ain't working. This is not working. It's not great. Those founding principles that this country was built upon, that was great. And we're still working towards it. So if we're not going to let refugees in, we're not going to let the immigrants in that are going to help this country, this ain't the same country. Ain't. So this is real. There's little kids fucking dying on the border in cages. And there's fucking kids wearing Make America Great Again hats on the stairs of the Lincoln Memorial. And they're doing a stare down with Native American marchers, protesters. It's like, this is unreal. This is fucking absurd. Who the fuck are we as a nation? America? Are we great? What makes us great? Our ability to destroy other countries? Our ability to oppress other countries? Our ability to oppress ourselves? What makes us great? Show me. Tell me. Because right now I'm feeling pretty pissed off, and I'm feeling like those kids that were on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial need to go down to the border and see the truth and see what's really going on down there, and then they can decide if they want to take their hats off. And we'll see if we can make America great again, because there ain't again. We got to make it great. See if we can make America great, period. Because we're still working on it. We're coming out of slavery, we're coming out of segregation, we're coming out of genocide with indigenous people. That shit ain't great. That shit is horrific. So when I see those red hats, I see Make America Horrific Again. And I ain't there. I'm not with it. I'm not down with the horror. So until next time, peace.